Welcome to the Good Leadership Podcast, where we engage with esteemed thought leaders and explore research-backed strategies and techniques that empower leaders at every level to achieve meaningful results that drive lasting change. Welcome to the program, Andrew.
Great to be here with you, Charles. Thank you for the warm introduction. Very grateful for that.
I'm so excited to have you today because you have such a powerful story and you've made such an impact with so many people that I feel like this message really needs to get out. So I'd like to start with that story and take you back to the fall of 2010 when you joined an organization called Teach for China to do volunteer teaching in the Yunnan province for 2 years. And you were a seventh grade teacher. You had a class of 47 students. You stayed, and every single day you were trying to teach them English to get ready for their middle school exams, working with them. And this part of China, right, had very low resources, a poor region of China. And you noticed something that was getting in the way of their learning.
2010. I had just graduated from Boston, and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that whatever it was, I wanted to do it in China. And that was something that really motivated me. I was fascinated by China. I wanted to experience it more. So joined this organization, Teach for China, to volunteer teach in Yunnan province. And so if you can imagine, China's kind of shaped like this. They say it's kind of like a rooster. And you have kind of Beijing is in the throat and Shanghai is in the heart. I was in Yunnan, which would have been the butt of the rooster, way down here, close to Myanmar. You have the Himalayas up north, so it's way out there, very, very rural. While I was teaching, if you can kind of imagine, just countryside school on the side of a mountain, intermittent electricity. We would kind of sometimes have internet at the school, which was wonderful. And then the classrooms were just these kind of big cement buildings with windows, 25, 30 dilapidated wooden desks, blackboards. That's all you had to work with. Grab some chalk, get ready to go. And so as I started teaching there, I could see that, as you can imagine, these students, they faced a lot of challenges because they were coming from the countryside, because, China still, at that time, and still very much is in a state of development. So very, very low resource. And one thing I noticed, I could go on forever about what the situation was like in rural China and what it was like for the kids, but really, really easy to see straight out of the gate that as I was up in front of my classroom, trying to teach English, putting things up on the blackboard, so many of my students were squinting, leaning forward, trying to look at the notes of their desk mate next to them, and they just could not see clearly to save their lives. And, it's tough to see that one day, but you see it day after day after day, and they get further and further behind in school. And it was really starting to have an effect on them and their entire education. That led to the birth of an organization, which I can tell a little bit more about in a second, but I'll pause there. I know that was a lot.
No, that's so important because a lot of people see needs in the community with underserved, underrepresented people, and they don't act, but you acted. And really, you identified three issues, right? And the easiest issue, which is somewhat surprising, is really the affordability. You handled that problem pretty quickly. It was the other two issues that were a little bit more difficult to resolve. So perhaps you can go into those issues that say, now you've seen the problem. Now, how do you structure the solution to get it to where it's adapted within those schools?
So of course, the kids could not see clearly, and it was nearsightedness. Nearsightedness was the problem they faced. And so if you're in the States or if you're in Europe, you have your kid can't see clearly, you go out, you get them glasses, they go back to school, they see clearly, problem solved. You don't think about it again until they need a new prescription. Not the case in rural China, unfortunately. So to your point, affordability was an issue for these students. Glasses can still be pretty expensive for a rural Chinese family that's making, a few $100 a month US. So that's an issue. But the two other big ones were, of course, access. Glasses are not close for these families. The nearest town center might be 2, 3, 4 hours drive away for some of these families, and that's where you're going to get your glasses. So these families, they don't have time. On the weekends, the kids go back home to the farm. They have to work. When are you going to go get glasses for your kids? And then the third thing, of course, is awareness or education. And so, jumping ahead a little bit here, we got some glasses for the kids in my school. I can tell a little bit about that. But we came back a year later after we gave those glasses, and to our horror, almost none of the kids were wearing them anymore. And I was like, oh my God, like we solved the problem. We gave you glasses. What's up going on here? And kids were saying, oh, I put them on, my eyes felt funny. Oh, I got home, my mom said I shouldn't wear glasses. My teacher didn't care, whatever it was. And we found out there's this huge gap in terms of, why should kids wear glasses? What is the benefit of wearing glasses? How do you get used to them? So we needed to educate too. It wasn't just enough to give. So those are the three kind of big elements of our program for getting glasses for students in the countryside.
Well, and that's similar to a lot of training and development programs that we see as well. It's one thing to give those skills, but it's another thing to change their mindset and make them more aware and change their behavior because that's really what we're going at. So I think a lot of insights can be really gleaned from your past in regards to overcoming this awareness and behavior issue because you said now they had the access, they had the glasses, they still weren't wearing them because you had to change that mindset, right? And change their behavior. So how did you go ahead and do that? Because I think a lot of our listeners would be interested to know and see how that might carry over to other fields as well.
Me and a few other people in my program in Teach for China, we put together a little bit of a program to get eyeglasses, eye doctors to come to schools, give eye exams to the students, and then get them those free eyeglasses so they could start to see clearly. So access and affordability solved in one fell swoop. And now we have to solve that awareness issue now that we know it's a problem. After finishing Teacher China, I actually went back to the States, worked at Forrester Research for a couple of years, but found myself spending more and more time on this project that we called Education Insight. And finally, in 2014, decided, hey, this is really what I want to do. Moved back to China, went full time on Education Insight. And that's when we really started to attack that problem of awareness for students. And I think the challenge of awareness is really that it's never just one audience. We had to think about all of the different stakeholders and what type of education they needed to receive specific to their context. So we had the kind of three big groups: students, we had teachers and kind of school faculty, and then we had parents. And each of them needed a specific different message to know and to learn about how to, in this case, get the kids to wear glasses so they could benefit from them. And so for the kids, we created, there's mostly middle school students, some elementary school students. So we created a cartoon. We got it in Chinese. We had some great characters. Main character was a rhino. Rhinos are supposed to have bad eyesight. I learned that as a result of this. We had specific parent conferences we would lead to tell parents about, like, okay, your kids are going to be coming home with glasses. This is what you can expect. There was a lot of misconceptions we had to kind of bat away and bring in health officials to talk about. And then teachers, we needed to give them a little bit of a handbook on, okay, beginning of class, call for your students to put their glasses on, make sure you know who's supposed to wear their glasses and things like that. So we had to kind of go 360 on our stakeholders to make sure that everyone was getting the right message.
And just to remind everyone, this isn't just a small program. I mean, these are stats that I'm sure are somewhat dated now, but they've worked in over 400 schools, over 170,000 eye exams, delivered over 25,000 pairs of eyeglasses. So this impact is not insequential. I mean, it's substantial and it's making a difference in so many people's lives in rural sections of a industrialized, developed country. Now, you started as a nonprofit, but you also created this social enterprise, which you felt was more financially sustainable, right? Can you kind of unpack why you made that transition and maybe what some of the advantages and disadvantages are for those two forms of organizations?
Absolutely. I have to toot Education Insight's horn just a little bit though. Those are actually woefully out of date numbers. And the reason is that for that is because we have an entirely Chinese operation now. So there's not a lot of Western facing stuff we do anymore for Education Insight, entirely based in China. And so as of this semester, we're they're about to go into Chinese New Year 2024, and we are over 600,000 eye exams and over 100,000 eyeglasses delivered as a program. I'm really proud of the team and just what they continue to do out there. They've really continued to scale. But yeah, so at the time, we went full time on Education Insight. We started to kind of build our team. And I have to shout out to the other person from Teach for China, Sam Waldo, who became my co founder. And we pursued this social enterprise together. But this is a story that you won't find on the website. But the early days of Education Insight, we had a donor that promised quite a significant donation for us in the early days. I think it was about $50,000 US, which was enough for us to do 2 or 3 counties worth of glasses. And this was a Chinese corporation. We got connected to the CEO through friends of friends, and it's what gave us the confidence to say, hey, let's go. Like this is the moment to really go full time on Education Insight. Well, unfortunately, that person had some very different ideas about philanthropy once we actually started to institute the program. And once we started doing the work, they had their own ways they wanted to see the philanthropy done to benefit their organization that we couldn't agree with. And they pulled out all of the money. They never gave us a dollar of donation. And that was one of the low points of Education Insight and my leadership in it for sure. And we were able to work through it. We rallied. We got what we needed to run the programs, but it also created this desire to say, hey, the nonprofit model is great, but there's risks involved. We need to hedge, and we need to make sure that we're mitigating for that. And at the time, social enterprise was really starting to grow in China, and it was a word that was floating around, but there was not really any social enterprise yet. And so we had the opportunity to kind of transform our model a little bit. And we had this idea for what would become China's first buy one, donate one eyewear brand. We called it Mantra. And, I can go into the details, but needless to say, when two guys and a Chinese team that do nonprofit work start to go to venture capitalists and say, we have an idea for a glasses business, we get a lot of skeptical looks and a lot of, that's a great idea. Thanks for coming in. We probably gave 20, 30 pitches, and we were able to find the initial investment for Mantra to build that social enterprise and start to grow out and become a more safely sustainable nonprofit and then social enterprise business.
That's great to hear. I see a lot of companies going that route as well, realizing there's so much need at the bottom, and they start out as a non for profit. They look at the social enterprise aspect of it to build that groundswell support, right? And to build it organically. And it's such a great cause, it's such an impact. I've heard that it's very difficult to run an NGO in China, even in the case of domestic organizations. So how was it difficult for you as a foreigner? Was it easy? What are some strategies, maybe not just for China, but that other listeners could use for thinking about moving into other countries?
Yeah, no, great question. So, not easy. Not easy. Short answer is not easy. You got to play to your strengths, Charles. And so, one thing that I think is unique to China, at least, I don't know if it's this true for a lot of other countries, is at the time there was a lot of skepticism for nonprofits in China. In the early 2000s, there was a huge scandal with the Red Cross that left a real bad taste in people's mouth for charity work and corruption. And it was very difficult to really kind of start any nonprofit for a long time. But people in China tended to trust foreigners who did nonprofit work. They considered it a little bit more altruistic in nature, and so that I think gave me as a foreigner a little bit of an advantage, at least in the public facing side, not so much on the program side. And so what really helped us there was just finding great Chinese team members, Chinese staff that were in a position to find us the partners we would need to run the programs and scale the impact we had. There's no chance I was going to be the person who was going to negotiate with the local education bureau and health bureau to run a program in Yunqian County, Yunnan Province. Not something I'm going to do. But Yang Jin, who's now our executive director, absolutely. She can do that. She can province after province. She's amazing. So just thinking about where do we have an advantage, where does the local have an advantage, making sure that we're filling those roles and kind of maximizing our potential there.
That's good to hear. Is there anything I'd love for you to share a story? I've heard the story of Sally. Love for you to share an impact story of really what this has meant to people that have utilized this program.
Yeah, well, I can tell you my own story. The students that the first batch, if you will. So I mentioned at the top that we ran in this would have been, gosh, 2012, 2012. We ran our first ever program. This is before we were even education in sight. And we got glasses at my school. A lot of kids did not keep wearing their glasses, but some kids did, and in particular, the students who I was teaching, who were seventh graders when I started. And so, I'm thinking of there's one of my students. His name was Ziqi. His English name was Spike. He was just a kid who really, really wanted to learn, and he had a lot of ambition to do well in school and get out of his circumstance. Leading up to those glasses, he was one of the most nearsighted kids in our class. He was struggling a lot. He was not realizing his full potential. You could see the frustration on his face. We got him the glasses, and he was like, "This is my ticket. I'm riding it." And he went from being in our middle school. He aced his middle school exams, got into the best high school in the county, got into a college out of province, which for a kid from rural Yunnan province is just like so nuts to be able to do. And now he's in engineering in China. And if he had never gotten those glasses, you can only imagine what that trajectory down might have been. He can't see, can't study, you're out. And I have students or stories of those students too. But I am just so unbelievably proud of Spike and what he's been able to accomplish. He has his own family now. It's just unbelievable to see. So we have a lot of stories like that for Education Insight, and I'm just proud. I'm really proud.
I can tell. Just great impact from a organization that does it, the right way, having the right motivation. So powerful to hear. What if I'm a person that says, Andrew, that worked for you? I mean, you were in the right position at the right time and it worked, but how do you help people that want to do something similar to what you did to have an impact, maybe in their local community, state, maybe just even in their family? I mean, what would be the first steps that you would recommend to say, if you see a need, you can impact that need? It doesn't have to be something that's profound, but you can make a difference.
Everyone knows what they could do to improve themselves. It's like if you just ask a person that question, they have an immediate gut answer about a way that they can be better, something they want to do, explore, learn. They want to lose weight, they want to read more, they want to get that language, they want to deal with their stress in a new way. And I think that's always a very, very powerful way to start. But when it comes to kind of reaching out in terms of their local community, the way that it worked for me was there was something I was just observing every day that I just could not get over the injustice of, that personally I was frustrated with, that was unfair. And I thought, there's got to be something we can do about this to make an improvement here. And so, that question about how can you improve oneself, I don't think a lot of people take that extra step to say, hey, how can I improve just like the local world around me? But if you ask yourself that question, there's something you can do there too.
Well, and I see that too, a lot but where I see the difference with you is that you saw this injustice. It was staring you right in the face day in and day out, and you decided to do something different about it. You didn't have that apathy or indifference, and you stuck with it because I know your journey has a lot of ups and downs. It wasn't just, okay, I'm going to provide this. Everything's great. In a year, I'm going to solve this problem. You didn't even know what you were solving for yet, what those issues were and how difficult it was going to be, but you stayed the course, and the impact that you've had is quite profound. So I don't want you to discount it at all because many people, one, wouldn't even have started down that road, and two, wouldn't have continued with all those issues that you did have an experience from knowing more of your story. So, congratulations to you. And I mean, just what an effect you have. And if more people saw a need and did something with it, we'd be living in a different world.
I think everybody is sitting on these things in their lives where if they just had a conversation with a person, talked about their passion a little bit more, got just a little bit of a nudge, it could change their entire life trajectory and how they see themselves. And we've certainly seen this, in my current work in Leaders Atlas too. Just the whole spectrum. This exists everywhere.
That's some great advice for everyone to take to get these passions put into action and to really make a difference in the world. Let's talk about your current project right now, your current company, Leaders Atlas. Give our listeners some insight into what that does and how it's uniquely positioned in the space. Because when you and I had our first conversation, I thought this is a novel and unique insight that really the expertise comes from within. You just have to pull it out.
Yeah. So yeah, Leaders Atlas. This is something that I started with one of my best friends, Abe Sarak, while we were still in China, and we've since brought it here to the U.S. We have a worldwide operation now, and so what we do is, and I can go into the backstory, but to give you the elevator pitch, if you're a leader inside an organization, maybe you have a team of 10, maybe you have a team of 100, whatever it is, you have your strategic priorities, the values you want your team to have, the skills you think they need to have to accomplish the work, and you want them to execute on these things to help grow your organization. But there's always a gap between kind of what's in that leader's head and what they're communicating, and what their team's doing. And so what we've kind of found is, when it comes to those types of things, the expertise is so often, almost always, inside the team itself. Those important skills, the stories, the experiences, the things that you think your team's going to need to succeed. A lot of people think, hey, we need to bring in an external facilitator to teach our team innovation or experimentation or whatever. Guarantee you already got it. And so what we do is we come in, we learn those priorities, we talk to members of the team that get recommended to us, and we pull out the stories, the skills, and experiences that make that team, that individual, great. And then we build workshops and interactive experiences for them to share it with the rest of their team so that everyone can level up, think about it, talk about it, and align with a leader on whatever is most important to that moment. And so that's what we do at Leaders Atlas.
Love that approach. That's unique because a lot of the training and development space, they bring the expertise in because they feel like the team doesn't have it already and they need to be instilled with soft skills, hard skills, whatever the case may be. Whereas your approach is different in that sense, right? It's really leveraging the expertise within the room and making sure that everyone is brought up to that level. So rising tide raises all ships, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What's the first step that they could do if they wanted to make an impact and move on something that they're passionate about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first step anyone can take, and honestly, just do it in this moment right here while you're listening to this episode, to take a pause. Ask yourself, what is that thing, either within yourself or around your community, that you think is important enough that you would like to make a change about? Something's popping into your head right now. It's like, don't think about white elephants. You thought about a white elephant. So what is that thing? Okay, you got it. And now the next thing is, what is the simplest, easiest action you could take to just nudge yourself in that direction? Maybe it's hopping on a website, looking up a local nonprofit that's already doing it. Maybe it's catching a YouTube video. Maybe it's making a call. Maybe it's talking to your friend and just starting a conversation. I really believe in building momentum kind of day by day. So what's that micro action you can take that's going to start to put your intentionality in that direction? Give yourself the permission to do it. And then honestly, while we're here, don't leave the episode and say like, oh, I'll do it later. Just do it now. You probably know what it is and get it done.
Great advice. Remind our listeners how they can get in contact with you and learn more about your work.
So there's www.leadersatlas.com for Leaders Atlas.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining me today. I know that our listeners are going to have lots of great, valuable takeaways from this, and just what a powerful story you had, and thanks for sharing it.
Yeah. Thanks for asking, Charles. Take care, everyone.
I hope this episode has provided you with valuable insights. If it has, I ask you to share it with someone who would also benefit from it. If you've been enjoying and gaining knowledge from this podcast, then subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find all the previous episodes of the podcast and additional learning resources. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple or Spotify and leave up to a 5-star review.